Oh, heck yeah.
I just hope they're real cops, not controllers. We had reached a patch of woods behind Deal and Dan's car dealership. It was really just a few scruffy trees between the car place and a convenience store. I watched from a low tree branch as Rachel morphed back into human again. If you've never seen someone morph, you have no idea how incredibly weird it is. When she began, she was a full-grown African elephant, 10 feet tall, almost twice that from head to tail. She weighed at least 6,000 pounds. I say at least because we've never exactly tried to stick her on the bathroom scale. She had 2 curved tusks, each about as long as a child, and a trunk that dragged on the ground when she walked and could pick up a big, slashing, yelling, dangerously angry Hork-Bajir warrior and throw him 20 feet. I'd seen her do it. Tobias, could you at least have waited till he was done broadcasting that commercial? Thousands of people saw that on TV. Thousands. Most people will figure it was some kind of stunt or trick, I said. Most people maybe, but not controllers. Any controller who happened to be watching will guess right away that we were not just animals. Controllers. There's a word you need to know. A controller is anyone with a Yeerk in his head. Yeerks are alien parasites. They are evil little slugs who live in the bodies of other species and enslave them. All the Hork-Bajir are controllers. So are the taxons. So are more and more humans. Human controllers. As I watched, Rachel began to shrink. The ropey tail was sucked up like a piece of spaghetti. Her trunk grew smaller. Blonde hair began to sprout from her massive gray forehead. Her eyes wandered across her face toward the middle. The vast leathery ears became pink and small and perfectly formed. The others are going to ream us out big time, aren't they? I said. Oh yes, I think we can count on that. It was my idea. I'll take the blame. Oh, shut up, Tobias. Stop being all noble. Besides, it was amazing fun to stomp those cars. She was small enough now that she could stand on her hind legs. As she did, her front legs grew smooth and human. Her back legs lost their clunkiness and became her own, long, coltish legs. Her morphing clothes, a skin-tight black leotard, emerged. The tusks slooped back into her mouth and divided into sparkling teeth. She was a very pretty girl. Beautiful, even, except that she had a 2-foot-long gray nose. At last, the trunk seemed to roll up and become a regular nose. She was a girl again, barefoot because no one had figured out how to morph shoes. Her mouth was back to normal. She spoke in her normal voice, no longer in my head. Thoughts morphs. Okay, I'm back. Let's bail. The siren sounds were coming even closer. Head for the convenience store. I'll go up and look around. I hope they have some flip-flops for sale in there, Rachel grumbled. The shoe situation is a pain. The elephant was gone. The girl had emerged. See, I told you it would be hard to believe. He had begun at a deserted construction site when we had found the crashed spaceship of an Andalite prince. He was the last surviving Andalite in our solar system. He and his fellow Andalites had fought a great battle to drive away the Yeerk mothership. They had fought and lost. And now the Yeerks are among us, and they are now trying to enslave the human race. Before he died at the hands of the Yeerk leader, a terrible creature called Visser III, the Andalite gave us a great gift, and a great curse. The gift was the power to morph, to absorb the DNA of any living animal and to become that animal. Never before had anyone but the Andalites themselves been given the power to morph. It meant a life of secrets, of terrible danger. The Yeerks think we are a small band of escaped Andalites. They know that morphs had attacked their Yeerk pool. They know that morphs had even infiltrated the home of one of their most important controllers, Chapman. But they don't know that we are just 5 normal human kids who'd been walking home from the mall one night. Visser 3 wants us caught or dead. Visser 3 usually gets what he wants. But I was glad to fight the Yeerks. Maybe I just had less to lose than the others. Or maybe something about that lonely, defeated, yet courageous Andalite prince touched me so deeply that I could never regret fighting to settle the score. But there had been a price to pay. You see, there is a limit on the power to morph. You must never remain in a morph for more than 2 hours. If you do, you are trapped. Forever. And that is the curse of the Andalite's gift. That is why, when Rachel returned to her human body, I didn't. It would take Rachel a while to get home on the bus. I traveled a little faster, so I had time to kill. The sun was setting, and in my mind, I could still picture the freed hawk heading into the sun. I hoped she had found a nice patch of forest to spend the night. That's what a redtail likes. A nice tree branch with a clear view of a meadow full of little mice and rats and shrews and voles as they scurry below. That's how they hunt. I headed toward the tall buildings of downtown. I caught a beautiful thermal that billowed up the face of some skyscrapers. A thermal is like a big bubble of warm air. It rises beneath your wings and makes it effortless to just go soaring up and up. I caught the thermal and went shooting up the side of the skyscraper like I was riding an elevator. A lot of the offices were empty since it was Saturday. But around the 60th floor, I saw an old man looking out the window. Maybe he was some big, important businessman. I don't know. But when he saw me, he smiled. He watched me soar up and away, and I knew he was jealous. I was half a mile up when I finally turned away from the sun and headed toward Rachel's house. The sun was going down. The moon just peeked over the rim of the world. And then I felt... I don't know how to describe it. It was in the air above me. Huge. Vast. Bigger than any jet. I looked up, but there was nothing there. And yet, I felt it in my heart. I knew it was up there, coming toward me, perhaps a mile higher than me. I focused all the power of my hawk's eyes on the sky. A ripple. That's what it was. A ripple. Like the ripples you make throwing a stone into a calm pond. The faint twilight stars flickered as it passed by. The sun's light bent. And just for a split second, I was sure I could see... something. But no. No, it was gone. If it had ever really been there. I tried to follow the hole in the sky, but it was moving too fast. I tried to see which way it was going, and where it had come from. It seemed to be moving away from the mountains and picking up speed, but I lost it over the suburbs as it accelerated away. I flew on to Rachel's house. I watched as she got off the bus far below me. The others, Jake, Marco, and Cassie, were all up in her room, waiting for us. I was not surprised. "Hey, Rachel," I said, floating above her. She could only wave up at me. You can hear thought speech when you're human, but you can't make thought speech. I predict Marco's first words will be, "Are you insane?" I told Rachel. She gave me a little wink. Rachel went in through the front door. I flew in an open window. There we were, all together, the 5 of us, the Animorphs. The other 3 of us must have seen the commercial and were not at all happy. Marco started the conversation. "Are you insane?" he said. Chapter 3. Marco yelled for a while. Jake made us promise never to do something that stupid again. And Cassie, being Cassie, got everyone to make up and be friends again. "We aren't supposed to be rescuing animals," Marco said. "We're supposed to be rescuing the entire human race from being enslaved by the Yeerks." "I thought you didn't want to save the world, Marco," I pointed out. He scowled at me. But there's no point in scowling at me. With my face, I can outscowl anyone. "You're right," Marco said. But since all of you guys think you have to save the world, and since you're all my friends, more or less, I figure someone has to keep you from being total idiots. Marco is the most reluctant of the Animorphs, although actually he's the one who came up with the word Animorph, and he's been in it with us from the start. Marco just thinks we should look out for ourselves and our own families. Marco and I will probably never be very close. He's a typical smart aleck kind of guy. Always confident, always has something funny or sarcastic thing to say. He's short, or at least he's not very tall. I guess girls think he's cute because he has this long brown hair and dark eyes. Jake grinned at Marco. So you're the one who has to rescue all of us from being idiots? Boy, if Marco's the sensible one, we're all in serious trouble, Rachel said. Everyone laughed. Jake gave Marco an affectionate punch on the shoulder. Just the same, it's nice of you to want to save us all. It's almost sweet. Marco made a face and grabbed one of Rachel's pillows to throw at Jake. Marco and Jake are absolute opposites, although they've been buds forever. Jake is big. Not football player big, but solid. Jake is one of those people who are natural leaders. If you were ever trapped in a burning building, you would turn to Jake and ask, "What do we do?" And he would have an answer too. You can tell he and Rachel are cousins. They're both kind of determined people. I have to get going, Cassie said. I have horses to feed and bird cages to clean. Don't say the word cage around Tobias, Marco said. He'll do some guerrilla commando ninja SWAT team hawk from hell attack on the center, and they'll talk Rachel into stomping your house flat. Everyone laughed, because we all knew why Cassie had bird cages. Her father and mother are both veterinarians. Her mom works for the Gardens, which is this huge zoo and amusement park. Her dad runs the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center in the barn on their family farm. The center takes in wild animals that are sick or hurt and cares for them. The cages Cassie had to get home to clean were filled with sparrows with broken wings, and eagles who had been shot, and seagulls who had gotten tangled in trash. Cassie is our expert on animals. She also gets us access to animals to morph. She's a gentle person. She can also morph better than any of us. Everyone stood up and started to go. You coming, Tobias? Jake asked me. No, not right away. I think I'll fly around. It's a nice night. Cool, he said. I'll put some food up in your attic for you in case you get home late. I don't want anything getting in at it, though. Can you open one of those Rubbermaid things? I saw the way the others kind of looked away when Jake mentioned the attic. They felt sorry for me. I can get it open, I said. Just be careful. You know, Tom. Tom is Jake's big brother. Tom is one of them. Everyone said goodnight. I saw Cassie and Jake touch their hands together in a way that could almost have been accidental. Then they were gone. All but me and Rachel. I don't like thinking of you living in a cold attic, Rachel said. I'm okay, I said. I wondered if I should tell her what I had seen, the darkness within darkness, the hole in the sky. But the truth was, even I didn't know what it was. It would just worry her, and she worried about me too much. Good night, I said. Yeah, take care of yourself, Tobias. I flew out through her window into the night. Rachel's sad eyes seemed to follow me. I hated the way they all felt sorry for me. All they could see was that I was not what I used to be. All they saw was that I had no home. But they didn't really understand. I hadn't had a real home since my parents died. I was used to being alone. And I had the sky. Chapter 4. The next day, I decided to go back to where I had seen, or not seen, that big thing in the sky. I had a feeling about it. A bad feeling. I flew up over the same area, rising as high as I could on the thermals. Hawks are not quite as good at soaring as eagles or some buzzards are. Man, you should see the way a turkey buzzard can work those thermals. Awesome. And actually, the red-tailed hawk in my head would be just as happy perched patiently on a branch of a tree. waiting to see its next meal go scurrying past. But I didn't eat like a hawk. I ate food that Jake gave me. I didn't hunt, although sometimes the urge to hunt was pretty strong. I could just hear Margot making some smart crack about me eating mice, or roadkill. When you're in a morph, it's hard to resist the animal's instincts. Jake found that out when he became a lizard. He glomped down a live spider before he got control of the lizard's instincts. I hadn't done that yet. I was afraid if I did it once, I'd never be able to stop. I soared high above the city, over the area I'd been through the day before. But nothing moved in the air above me. Then it occurred to me, whatever it was, maybe it only happened at certain times of the day. It had been almost sunset when I had felt its presence last. I decided to come back around sunset, which meant I had the whole day ahead of me, with nothing special to do. This did not make me happy. See, the fact is, a hawk spends almost all its time hunting for food. As for me, Tobias, when I hadn't been in school, I used to spend most of my free time watching TV, hanging out at the mall, doing homework, reading. All things it was difficult for me to do now. I missed school, even though I had been constantly picked on by bullies. I didn't really miss my home, though. See, when my parents died, there was no one who really wanted me. I ended up getting shunted back and forth between my uncle here and my aunt across the country. Neither of them really cared about me. I don't think they even missed me. I had arranged for Jake to leave a message with my uncle. We told him I had gone to stay with my aunt. Each of them, my uncle and my aunt, thought I was staying with the other. I had no idea how long that trick would hold up before one of them figured out I wasn't in either place. I guess when they realize it, they'll call the cops and report me as a runaway. Or maybe they won't even bother. So, what was I gonna do with my day? I'd been floating up here in the high air, just below the clouds, for a couple of hours. It was time to give it up and try again another time. I tilted my wings and adjusted my tail, turning toward Rachel's house. Maybe she would be hanging around the house, bored. Then it happened. A mile or more above me, the ripple passed through the air. An emptiness, a hole where no hole should be. I reacted instantly. I had to get closer. I flapped till my chest and shoulder were sore, but it was moving too fast, and it was too high. It pulled away from me, a wave of air, a rippling of the fabric of the sky. It was moving in a different direction, though. It was moving toward the mountains. Then, a flight of geese on the move in a tight V formation. They were maybe a dozen of the big, determined geese, moving along at an amazing rate, powering their way through the air like they always do. Geese always seem to be on a mission, like, get out of our way, we're geese and we're coming through. The geese were aimed straight for the disturbance. Suddenly, the lead goose folded like it had been hit by a truck. Its wings collapsed, but it did not fall. The injured goose slid through the air. It slid horizontally, rolling and flipping like it was passing over the top of a racing train. Most of the other geese suffered the same fate. One or two managed to peel away in time, but geese are not real agile. The invisible wave smacked into the flight, and the geese were crushed. They were rolling and sliding along some unseen but solid surface. And everywhere the geese hit, I could catch little glimpses of steel gray metal. The wave passed by. The geese fell in its wake, dead or injured. It flew on, unconcerned. But then, why should the Yerks care about a handful of geese? And that's what they were, I was certain. Yerks. What I had seen, or not quite seen, was a Yerk ship. Chapter 5. It figures, Margot said thoughtfully. The Yerks would have to have some kind of cloaking ability, like stealth technology, only much better. We were all in Cassie's barn. Her dad was away for the afternoon, and it's one of the few places where I can go and not look out of place. Old-fashioned barn, but with rows of clean cages. There are partitions keeping the birds away from the horses, and more partitions keeping the raccoons and possums and occasional coyote away from the skittish horses. The floor of the barn is usually strewn with hoses and buckets and scattered hay. There are charts on each cage showing the condition of the animal and what treatment it's getting. It's usually a pretty noisy place, what with the various birds chirping or cooing, horses snuffling, and raccoons fussing with their food. I looked over a little nervously at a pair of wolves, one male, one female. One had been shot. The other had eaten poison left out by a farmer. Wolves are new in the area. Wildlife experts had brought some back to the nearby forest. Wolves make hawks a little edgy. We were always able to see the Yerk ships, Rachel pointed out. We saw the bug fighters and the blade ship. She was leaning against a cage that housed an injured mourning dove. The dove was watching me suspiciously. Yeah, but every Yerk ship we've ever dealt with has either been on the ground or about to land, Jake said. Maybe the cloaking ability doesn't work when they get close to land. But if you think about it, Marco is right. They would have to be able to avoid being picked up by radar. Maybe they also have the ability to avoid being seen. It was a Yerk ship, I said flatly. How can you be so sure? Cassie asked. She was working as we talked, cleaning an empty cage with a brush and a bucket of sudsy water. It just was, I said stubbornly. I just got this feeling from it. Also, it seemed huge. Far bigger than even the biggest jet. This was huge. More like a real ship, you know, like an ocean liner. The question is, what do we do about it? Jake asked. Of course, I knew he'd already made up his mind to do something. But Jake doesn't like to act like the one in charge, even though that's how I think of him. He lets everybody have their say first. I want to find out what it's doing, I said. The first time, I had the feeling it was heading away from the mountains. The second time, it was doing just the opposite. It was flying too low to make it over the mountains. So I'm guessing it's doing something in the mountains. Rachel nodded. That makes sense. Marco rolled his eyes. The mountains? Have you suburb dwellers ever been to the mountains? We're talking about a large area. No matter how big this ship is, it could hide in 1,000 places in the mountains. Then we'd better start looking right away, Rachel said brightly. Jake looked at Cassie. Cass, what do you think? Cassie shrugged. I halfway feel like we've done enough, you know? We attacked the Yerk pool. We barely got out alive. We infiltrated Chapman's house, and Rachel was captured. Again, we barely got out alive. I guess the question is, how many risks are we going to take? How many more times are we going to barely escape? I could see that Marco was surprised. Suddenly, it sounded like Cassie was on his side. Exactly. Just what I've been saying. Why is it our job to get killed? But then Cassie went and blew it all for him. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I can't just do nothing while people are enslaved by the Yerks, Cassie said. Maybe it's just me. She shrugged. The thing is, I have these powers. She shrugged again. I can't just do nothing. Look, these aren't people we know, Marco argued. They aren't our friends or our family. He shot a guilty look at Jake. And we did everything we could for Tom. So why should I get killed for strangers? We can't stay lucky forever. Don't you people understand that? Sooner or later, we'll slip up. Sooner or later, we'll be standing around here crying because Jake or Rachel or Cassie or Tobias is gone. You know what? Rachel exploded. I am tired of trying to talk you into this, Marco. You want out? Fine. You're out. Hey, Rachel, you're not just doing this to help save the human race, Marco yelled back. You get off on the danger. That's why you went with Tobias to free that bird. That wasn't about saving the world. That was about rescuing some stupid bird. Marco realized he'd gone too far. He fell silent. The others all looked guiltily at me. Rachel shot Marco a look of pure anger. As of right now, I said, as of today, only one of us has been hurt. Me. But I'm not going to give up. I'm not anyone's leader. But what I am going to do is go to the mountains tomorrow morning. What the rest of you do is your business. I'll be with you, Rachel said instantly. Cassie nodded. Jake made a wry smile. You say you're not a leader, but I'll go with you. Marco shook his head. No, he said. Your choice, Rachel said. That's not what I meant, Marco said angrily. I meant no, not in the morning. Tomorrow's a school day. If all of us skip school on the same day, and later there's some trouble with the Yerks, don't you think Chapman might put 2 and 2 together? Jake raised an eyebrow. Marco's right. After school. He looked at the others and nodded. It bothered me that Marco was right, but he was. Marco might be a pain in the butt, but he's a very smart guy. It worried me a little. It made me wonder, was he right about other things as well? How many risks could we take before we lost? How long till 5 of us were 4? Or 2? Or none? Chapter 6. Jake had the Peregrine Falcon morph we'd used before. Marco and Cassie had morphed ospreys. Rachel had been a bald eagle. So we all should have been able to fly up to the mountains. But there are millions of bird watchers in this country. They're very cool people because they never hurt a bird. They don't hunt. They just get pleasure out of watching birds fly or nest. Bird watchers would think it was very, very weird if they saw a red-tailed hawk, a bald eagle, a falcon, and 2 ospreys all flying together as if they were on a mission. And some of those gentle bird watchers might be not so gentle controllers. Bird watchers, Marco snorted as he tramped over the carpet of pine needles deeper into the woods. We could fly, but no, we have to walk. 20 miles, probably. Cassie's farm has a lot of open grass areas, and it borders on a national forest. The national forest goes on forever. It stretches from the edge of the town all the way up to the mountains. It's all pines and oaks and elms and birches. Wilderness, really. Thousands of square acres of it. Oh, come on, Marco, Cassie chided gently. It's an opportunity to try out a new morph. Yeah, Jake chided. Instead of being home doing math homework, you get to turn into a wolf. Are you going to tell me you'd rather be doing equations? Let's see, Marco considered. Math? Or becoming a wolf and going off to find aliens? Maybe I should ask the school counselor what she thinks. It's such a common problem. I'm sure she'd have some good advice. Since it wasn't a good idea for all of us to travel to the mountain as birds, the others needed a morph that could travel far and fast through the woods. And there were the 2 injured wolves in Cassie's barn. Jake stopped, looked around and announced, "This is good." We were a few hundred yards into the woods. I came to rest on a low branch of a huge oak tree. The hawk and me took note of a squirrel a few branches up. He started chittering and shrieking his little squirrel warning. Danger, danger, hawk, hawk. I gave him a look. He twitched, stuck the acorn he was holding into his cheek, and took off at full speed. What I don't get is why I have to be a girl wolf, Marco grumbled. We had 1 male and 1 female, Cassie explained for the 10th time. If 2 of us morphed into the male, we'd have 2 males. 2 male wolves might decide they had to fight for dominance. I could control it, Marco said. Marco, you and Jake already fight for dominance, and you're just ordinary guys, Rachel pointed out. She's right, Cassie said sadly. I'm afraid your primitive male behavior might slow us down. Hey, when I morphed into a gorilla, I handled that gorilla brain okay, didn't I? Marco demanded. Sure, Marco, Rachel said. She batted her eyes. But that was different. You and the gorilla are already so much alike. Cassie and Rachel gave each other discreet high fives. Hugely funny, Marco said. We flipped a coin fair and square, Jake said. I got to be the male. You're one of the females. Get over it. Let me see that coin again, Marco said suspiciously. Jake just smiled. Let's do this. Cassie, you want to go first to see what it's like? We had learned from hard experience that morphing can be extremely disturbing. Jake had morphed into a lizard and been almost overpowered by the animal's fearful brain. The same had happened to Rachel when she'd morphed a shrew. She still had nightmares about the shrew experience. Its fear, and worse, its hunger for bugs and rotting flesh. On the other hand, Jake had morphed into a flea, and according to him, it was kind of a big nothing. Like being trapped inside a very old, very bad video game, where you could barely see anything. The flea brain had been too simple to make trouble. Okay, I'll let you know. Cassie closed her eyes and concentrated. Then she opened them again. Wait, let me get down to my morph suit first. I don't want to get tangled up in my clothes. She removed everything but a leotard, kicked off her shoes, and stood barefoot on the pine needles. The first change was her hair. It went from very short black to shaggy silver in just a few seconds. It traveled down from her head, down her neck, over her shoulders, around her neck. Long, shaggy fur. Then her nose bulged out. I shuddered. You never really get used to seeing people morph. It's something straight out of a nightmare. Even though Cassie seems to have some kind of talent for it, she's never quite as gross as the others. I guess it's because she's so close to so many animals. Maybe she just has a special feel for them. Still, as the wolf snout began to push out from her face, it was not a pleasant sight. Her ears grew furry and pointed. Then they slid straight up the side of her head, till they almost touched on top. Her eyes went from brown black to golden brown. All over her body, the fur replaced the bright pinks and greens of her leotard. A tail suddenly shot out from behind. I could hear the grinding of her bones as they rearranged. Her upper arms shortened. Her lower arms grew longer. Fingers shriveled and disappeared, leaving behind only stubby black nails. There was a sickening crunch as her knees changed direction. Her legs shrank and thinned and grew fur. Suddenly, she fell forward, no longer able to stand erect. It had taken about 2 minutes. Cassie was now a wolf. "How is it?" Jake asked. Cassie jerked suddenly at the sound of his voice and spun around to face him. She bared her teeth and snarled a warning that would have made a taxon back up. She had very impressive teeth. "Let's all just stand really still," Jake said. "Good idea," Marco agreed. "Really, really still. Because those are really, really big teeth." Everyone stood motionless. They had all been through similar experiences. We knew what was happening. Inside the wolf's head, Cassie was fighting to gain control of the wolf's wild instincts. "Sorry," she thought spoke at last. "I have it now." "Are you sure?" Rachel asked warily. "Yes, I'm fine. I'm fine. In fact, it's really kind of wonderful. The sense of hearing. Wow, and my nose. Whoa, that's incredible. I've never morphed an animal with such a strong sense of smell." "Then I'm glad I put on extra deodorant," Marco joked. "Who had bacon for breakfast?" Cassie turned her wolf head this way and that. "Rachel? Bacon? I thought you were going to go vegetarian." Marco laughed at the guilty look on Rachel's face. "Ooh, busted by Cassie the Wonder Nose." "Let's get busy," Jake said. "The 2-hour clock is now running. Tick-tock." One by one, they each stole a glance at me. I'm a handy reminder of what happens if you stay in a morph for too long. Chapter 7. I was jealous. I mean, okay, if you ever have to be stuck as an animal, I think being a hawk is the coolest choice of all. But still, I was jealous. My friends were really enjoying being wolves. I guess it was a strange experience for them. I flew above the forest, skimming the treetops, while down below they ran. They moved so fast it wasn't always easy for me to keep up. Not that their actual speed was so great, it's just that they never stopped, never rested. They just moved at a constant 20 miles an hour or so, over fallen logs, between trees, under bushes. Nothing even slowed them down. Well, actually, that's not completely true. Two things slowed them down a little. One was Jake. He was the dominant male. In wolf packs, that's called an alpha. So he had a special wolf job to perform. Jake, just how many more times are you going to pee? Rachel demanded after his fifth stop. I don't know. I kinda have to do it a lot, he admitted. Why? Did you drink too much soda before we left? I don't know, he admitted. I just keep getting this urge to pee. You're scent marking, Cassie explained. You're marking out a territory. I am? Yes, you are. It's normal for a dominant wolf. At least that's what my wolf book said. Although it's a little gross for the rest of us to have to watch. The other thing that slowed them down was when they stopped once and started to howl. It was Jake who started it. It caught everyone by surprise, including Jake himself. What the? Margot started to say, but then he was doing it too. Cassie and Rachel weren't far behind. I heard the yowling, of course, so I took a quick turn around a tree and headed back to them. What are you people doing? I demanded. We're in a hurry here. You guys can only stay indoors for 2 hours. Why are you wasting time howling? I don't know, Jake admitted sheepishly. I just felt like it would be a good idea. Once he started, I kind of felt like I should join in, Rachel said. I think it's a way to warn all the other wolves that we're here, so we don't run into any other packs and get in fights, Cassie suggested, which sounded perfectly reasonable until you saw that Cassie had her head tilted back and her snout pointed at the sky and was yodeling like an idiot. I flapped my wings and broke out from under the trees. The city and the suburbs were far behind me now. We had traveled pretty far in an hour's time. It was about the same time of day as my second sighting of the invisible ship, the time when it had been heading toward the mountains. I swooped back down into the trees. You guys keep moving. I'm going up top to look around. Be careful, Rachel said. I banked left around a tree, then flapped my way back into the sun. I climbed hard and fast, using a lot of energy. The exercise helped distract me. It's hard feeling sorry for yourself when you're working out big time. After a while, I was able to catch a nice thermal and get some easy altitude. I could still see the little wolf pack, moving like it had a single mind, flowing around the trees, swift and sure. I tried to imagine what it must be like to be a wolf. That amazing sense of smell, the incredible hearing, all that confident power, those ripping teeth, the cool intelligence. Maybe later I would ask Rachel or Jake about it. Then you could ask them what it was like to be human. Maybe they can tell me about that too, I thought bitterly. Stop it, Tobias, I ordered myself. Stop it. I guess I felt that if I ever started to feel really sorry for myself, I might never stop. I kept a sharp eye out on the sky above, but it was probably still too early for the ship to come. Even if it came, there was no reason to think it kept some kind of schedule. Then, down below, I saw something that caught my attention. There was a convoy of trucks and jeeps moving along a narrow, snaking dirt road. Maybe 5 vehicles. They had the markings of the Park Service, but they seemed to be in a big hurry. They drove to a lake I had just glimpsed up ahead. By the shore of the lake, they pulled off the road. Then, to my surprise, several dozen uniformed men jumped from the trucks and began to fan out through the woods. They were carrying guns, but not rifles or even pistols. I could see them clearly. They were carrying automatic weapons. Suddenly, movement in the sky. What the? To my left, I spotted a pair of helicopters. They zipped just inches above the trees. They began to circle the lake. These also had Park Service markings. This is all wrong, I told myself. These guys don't act or move like park rangers. These guys move like an army. And as I watched, half a dozen of the armed men surrounded a small patch of bright yellow. It was a tent. 2 people, they looked like college types, were cooking over a little fire outside the tent.